Hello and welcome to Films for the Very First Time. My name is Jordan. With me is, as always, is Casey McGeorge.
Oh, how's it going, everybody?
It is it's going well. Um, for me anyway. I don't know about the rest of the listeners, but for me, I'm doing well. Um, we are here. The typical. This is season 2. Let me just give the rundown here. Each episode, one of us picks a movie that the other one has not seen. And or TV
Or
show,
TV show.
right?
We've done that a few times.
Done that a few times. Um, and this week we are talking a movie that Casey picked that I've never seen. Which movie is it that we're talking about?
So I don't have high hopes for this for you. Um, but we're gonna go back to the year 2000. Um, and this is definitely a 90s 2000 ass movie. We're gonna watch Final Destination. Uh, Final Destination. I said it was released March 17th of 2000. So literally almost 25 years ago. Um, it's March of
By the time this comes
2025,
out, it will have been 25 years. Yeah.
and I just feel old as hell. Like I realized that earlier when I was doing the research for this, and like I saw the release date, and I was like, 2000, Jesus. It is a story by Jeffrey Reddick. We will get to him in a moment. Screenplay by Jeffrey Reddick, Glen Morgan, and James Wong. We'll talk about them in a moment. Directed by James Wong, starring Devon Sawa. For years, I could never pronounce that poor guy's name right. I always wanted to say something else instead of his correct last name. Ali Larder, which some of you may know from Heroes or currently from Landman. Apparently, she's doing a great job in that. Kerr Smith, and the recently departed Tony Todd. It had a budget of $23 million, and it made its box office was 112.9. The basis of the movie is after getting a premonition about a plane crash on his school trip, Alex, a student, saves a few of his classmates. However, their situation gets complicated when death starts chasing them. So, in the year 2000, I was 4 years into my Army career.
Wow.
I was stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia. Um, and I was getting ready to go to Bosnia. I believe I did not see this in theaters, but I got my first DVD player while I was in Bosnia.
Mm.
And this is something only some older people might really recognize. Just like with their music and record club and tape club that they had back in the day, Columbia House had a DVD club where you could join for a small amount, sometimes as little as a penny, but you were obligated to buy like 10 DVDs or whatever over the course of like 2 years at outrageous prices. They were like 25, $30 a
The fun story about
pop.
that. They just shut down the Disney Movie Club, which was very similar to that. And I was a member of it for years. You had to reach a certain number of titles, right, to be able to like satisfy your deal with them or whatever. Because like when you first signed up, it'd be like 10 Blu-rays for like
A
five
buck or
dollars
something like
or
that.
yeah, and you're like, all
Yeah.
right, let me go through and pick which 10 I need. But to be able to continue or to keep that deal, so they don't charge you the full price afterwards, you had to like satisfy like 10 or so movies that of the month that they would send you, and you had to keep some of them. Um, as a Disney fan and as somebody that was collecting every Disney Blu-ray I could for like animated films and Pixar and all those, I would. Uh, it was an easy deal for me, and I quickly met my quota, and then I would, you know, um, decline the title Sometimes I forget to decline the title, so I actually have an extra Black Panther Wakanda Forever in my house, 4K Blu-ray. It's just sitting here. But because I'd already bought it before it turned out to be the title of the month or whatever. But then they would have like really good deals or sales, or that's how I got like WandaVision,
Box
and
sets were pretty cheap,
that's how I got
and
WandaVision and Loki for pretty cheap. Like, it was like buy one get one 50% off or something. So like one of my like Loki was $17 instead of like the insane $45 it typically is or whatever. So it was a really good deal. They just shut it down last year, but so I miss it. But yeah, this is so these things were still out there as of this last year, and then they shut it down when they signed a deal with Sony to produce their Blu-rays instead.
I was delivering a lot of those on a regular basis. Um, the only difference was these weren't automatically sent. Like you had to like go on there
Mm-hmm.
and request them. Um, but like I said, they were ridiculous prices. These were just regular DVDs, but they were like 30, 35 bucks or whatever. Every now and then you would get sales, box sets, so on and so forth. Um, many of our older listeners might have had some dealings with them in BMG in their music uh, days. You get literally 10 CDs for a penny, but you had to buy like so many CDs over the course of time. But then the CDs were like 25, 30 bucks a pop when you could go to whatever store and get them for like 15 or 17, whatever the case is. So this was one of the first DVDs I bought, and I think I ended up getting it through Columbia House's movie collection. Um, so this was definitely during the age where they were doing a lot of like teenage comedy, or not comedies. They were doing a lot of like it was almost a second wave of those teen uh raunchy comedies like from the 80s where they did like Porky's, Animal House and stuff like that.
Yeah, American
And then they
Pie
kind of
was
went
like the year before
yeah,
this, right?
they went through another realm of that, American Pie, Euro Trip, which uh timing wise we just literally a few days ago, as of this recording, lost Michelle Trachtenberg
Yeah.
um from that. But like yeah, the American Pie series, Euro Trip, stuff like that, Road Trip, all those kind of teen raunchy comedies. But there was also like just a big teenage boom of like movies and TV shows in general. This is where you're starting to get Dawson's Creek that was starting to pop up. We talked about Buffy had been out for a few years by this time. So these entertainment companies were starting to realize, oh, if we can get these young adults in, we can make some money off of that. What was your experience with the Final Destination franchise, and why had you not gotten around to seeing it prior to this?
So I was 8 turning 9 when this movie came out. Um so
I
not
probably
one.
would have seen it as an 8-year-old because I didn't have the best parents, but I don't know if this is the right movie for an 8-year-old.
I would like my parents weren't super strict with that kind of stuff. Like I knew people like my wife that could not watch PG-13 until they're like 13, you know. Um I
My mom took me to go see Fatal Attraction with her in the movie theater.
I mean, I've talked about it probably before on here. I saw Borat with my grandmother when I was in high school. Not a great movie to go see with your grandmother, but we still laugh about it to this day. Anyway, um,
Very nice.
there, my history with this is I knew of the franchise, right? Like, I feel like I've seen clips from different movies. I've seen like we talked last week, the log truck stuff. I've seen the I think it's from the third one, the sunbathing in the tanning bed uh, death or whatever. I've seen like cuts
Yeah,
of certain deaths, and I understood like the main premise of they didn't die in this thing, so like death is continuing to try to rectify cheating death. Like I
yeah.
understood that.
Unless you're Dana Scully,
Yeah,
you're not
yeah.
immortal. You're gonna
So
die.
I understood
That's gonna
those
get
type
you
of
sooner or later.
things about the franchise, but had my most experience with it was probably actually last year. I saw a clip on Twitter, and this is going to be spoilers for the fifth movie. So, like, if you don't want that, like, turn it off or skip ahead, I guess. But one thing that intrigued me about this was I saw a clip for the fifth movie where they did like side by side for like the plane scene of this movie and the plane scene of that movie, and how it is revealed that the fifth movie was before this one, and that
Yeah, it's a prequel that leads into this
right, and that it was like a twist for when people were sitting and they're like, oh my god, like that is ties into the first movie or whatever. So that interested me, and I that's like the only things I really knew about this as a whole. Um, so yeah, I mean that was my experience with it. I'm not like a big horror fan. I've seen like some campy ones, right? Like I have a weird stance with horror, I would say, right? Like I grew up, I've seen like Friday the 13th, not like the theatrical versions, the cut for TV ones, so they're not as, bad, I guess.
gory and sexy
Yeah,
is
Halloween, Friday the 13th, all those. Like I've seen those. Not all of them, but I've seen bits and pieces of them on like Sci-Fi Channel, TNT, whatever's playing. My mom loves those, so we'll end up sometimes watching those, and those are funny. Like I find those funny because they'll be like, you know, the person trips down the stairs because they're running from the bad guy, and then they look up and the bad guy's now in front of them at the end of the stairs or whatever, and you're like, yeah, how'd that happen, right? So those were never like super scary to me, I guess. But when it comes to more like, I don't think I would ever watch like Saw or something because that seems way more in the gruesome area, I feel like, than
that actually has a category of like torture porn.
yeah,
So that's a whole different like subgenre of
those are not for me. But like I loved playing Until Dawn, the video game. That game, I love that game. I love those type of, or The Quarry, which was made by the same people that focuses on like those slasher horror vibes and put like little spins on those. But this one, I had friends that have seen it. My cousin loves horror, so I just actually texted him that like I was watching this movie. But like, I don't know, I just never really. I guess as a kid, I was scared that I would be scared, right? And then like I'm a like back then I probably would have been a little bit more scared that like death is coming for me, and I would have been worried about all that kind of stuff. But now I don't really believe in that type of supernatural stuff, so I probably wouldn't. I don't really have much of a problem with it.
yeah. So your stuff like Saw and Hostel, that's a whole separate category of like torture porn or gore porn or whatever. That's I wouldn't even really classify that as horror. I mean, I'm sure there's other people might have different views on that or whatever. I don't know. Like that's not a scary movie to me. That's just like you said, it's just gruesome for no reason. I've seen those movies. That they're interesting in some ways. Not the top of my list. Saw is just because of some other things that go along with it. I find those intriguing, but some other stuff not so much. But so before we get to the movie, let's talk about some things with it. So talked about this before. Phil began as a spec script written by Reddick for an episode of The X-Files in order for Reddick to get a TV agent. Colleague at New Line Cinema persuaded Reddick to write it as a feature-length film. Later, James Wong and Glen Morgan, two X-Files writing partners who were heavily involved in the X-Files, and they've made some of the best X-Files episodes. I think I brought their names up last time when we did X-Files about a couple of things that they did. Um, they became interested in the script and agreed to rewrite it and direct the film, making that James Wong's directing debut. So, like I said, it was originally written by Reddick as a spec script in order to get a TV agent. He says, quote, I was actually flying home to Kentucky and I read a story about a woman who was on vacation. Her mom called and said, don't take the flight tomorrow. I have a really bad feeling about it. She switched flights. The plane she would have gotten on crashed, Reddick said. I thought that's creepy. What if she was supposed to die on that flight? He builds on the idea. He writes a script and gets an agent. But instead of writing it, submitting to X Files, he they turn it to the feature film. New Line Cinema, who was really big into horror at the time and stuff like that, they did a lot. Nightmare on Elm Street, and I'm pretty sure there's other horror franchises around. They bought Reddick's treatment, hired him to write the original draft of the script. The original draft features death as an unseen force. The survivors were originally adults, but New Line Cinema makes Reddick change it to teenagers after the success of Scream a year or two prior, which kind of brought slasher movies back into vogue again. So the slasher movie craze hit in the late 70s, early 80s, stuff like that. That's where you get your Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, stuff like that. Bam. Then horror kind of goes through this whole renaissance and they start doing different things with it, right? So your slasher flicks kind of go out of style. Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven make Scream, brings it back in, right? And which, have you seen Scream?
No.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind. Scream was really, really good.
I hear good things about the franchise, so
Just like any franchise, it has its ups and downs. And especially, I haven't seen any of the last like three. I think the last one I saw was Scream 4, so I haven't seen like 5 and 6. And I think they're on 7 right now. I don't know.
yeah, they're making 7.
4 was the last one with like a lot of or most of the original cast. Nev Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, stuff like that. So once you're trying to get to like part 4, but you're trying to continue on with the same story or connect it to the same story from the original one, it takes a lot of work to like start weaving threads and like make little connections and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So just like any franchise that's trying to do that, it's going to have its ups and downs. Some things are going to fall apart. Some things you're going to be like, really? But overall, not bad. So the script gets finished. New Line submits the script to directors, including Wong and Morgan. Both of them were willing to make it into a film, but they rewrote the script to get it up to their standards. Quote, I believe that at one time or another, we've all experienced a sense of prescience. We have a hunch, a feeling, then that hunch proves true, Wong says. We want to do what planes and air travel, what Jaws did for sharks and swimming. Expanding on the decision to write and direct the film, Wong stated, quote, one thing we're all in agreement on from the start is that we didn't want to do a slasher movie. I became very excited. We decided to make the world at large, in the service of death, our antagonist. Everyday objects and occurrences take on an ominous proportions, and it becomes less about whether or not our characters are going to die and more about how they will die and how they can delay their death. The entertainment value is the ride, not in the outcome. And by placing the premise of the film on the inevitability of death, we play a certain philosophical note. Morgan states the main thing they wanted about death coming to get people is that you never saw a kind of Michael Myers figure. You never saw an actual killer. They liked the idea, and they said, okay, go write it. Once we had a basic story, started cataloging the strange coincidences in my own life. For example, this is coming from Glen Morgan. I was in a Vancouver airport waiting for a flight when John Denver comes on the loudspeaker. I remember saying to myself, hey, he just died in a plane crash. That's a little weird. We wrote that version of the experience into the script. And if you notice, John Denver songs are in this movie a lot.
Yeah.
So Reddick originally envisioned, well before this happened, Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst for the lead roles.
I think that's pretty funny too, because like they hadn't started anything together until Spider-Man, right? Or
Yeah,
like
Spider-Man
so
was.
then that's like Spider-Man's after this.
Yeah,
So
this is a couple years before
that's
Spider-Man,
funny.
but I could see Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst playing the lead
Mm-hmm.
roles. Tony Todd, who we also recently lost in the last few months, who played Candyman in the 1992 film Candyman, was cast as Mortician William Bloodworth. Morgan initially wanted Todd for the role because he felt his deep voice would give the film an eerie tone. Another example, the first draft of the film, the survivors that get off the plane were all seven strangers, but due to the teen slasher craze popping up, it was changed to a high school class. The film was originally titled Flight 180, so you will see an appearance of 180 in the film many times. New Line Cinema decided to rename it Final Destination through fear of confusion with other films like Air Force One or Con Air, which came out in '97. Like I said, John Denver music was played a lot in this. A couple years, and he died in a plane crash a couple years before. So before we get started, did you ever take any big field trips in high school or anything like this?
Not to this level, no. The most I would say is probably our senior trip. We went up to Hershey, Pennsylvania for Hershey Park, which is about an hour and a half, maybe like an hour and a half to drive or something. So that's probably the farthest we've gone on a school field trip.
So once again, I'm a little older than you. Grew up in the '80s, saw a lot of high school comedies and stuff, right? And especially in a lot of those high school movies, there was always, like you said, the senior class trip. And a lot of these movies, they were always going to these far off places: New York, LA,
Mm-hmm.
Miami. They're going to Paris in this one, London. I thought that was like a high school thing, and I didn't get a senior class trip. We didn't have a senior class trip. But I'm wondering a few things. One, how rich are these people where they're affording to send their kids, and the school is they're sending them to Paris for like 10 days. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, if I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to go to Paris for 10 days right now, even just basic economy class, the plane ride would cost me probably a couple of grand. Then hotels and things, like, you're probably looking at about 10 grand, between 5 and 10 grand, I'd imagine. It's not counting like money for food and incidentals and everything else I'm gonna do. So how did they get or raise the money? And there's only two chaperones for this high school class.
Yeah, for 40 people,
Hold on,
yeah.
there's only two chaperones for a senior high school class full of hormones going to Paris for a senior field trip. Like, that is ridiculous. My first duty station in the Army was Korea, right? So I leave basic training in training in Fort Knox, Kentucky. I take a flight from Louisville to Detroit, get on a plane. We fly nonstop from Detroit to Seoul, South Korea. And there's probably about 40 or 50 of us on this flight. We get to Seoul, South Korea. We land, we get a couple hours of sleep, and then we start our in processing. And about halfway through the day, like, they kept telling us, because over there they have a lot of holidays. So it was like a Thursday, but it was a long weekend for some Korean holiday. Okay, cool. So they're like, they had put us in a hotel in downtown Seoul, South Korea, right? And they're like, you guys are going to stay here till Monday, and we're going to pick things back up on Monday, but we're going to try and get through as much as we can today, right? And I'll never forget it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this one guy who was in charge, and he's got his clipboard in front of him, and he's looking at like the names and everything, and he's like, hold on, wait a minute. And he's like, if this is your first duty station, if you're coming from basic training, AIT, OSA, raise your hand or stand up. There's like 150 people of us. There's like 150 people in there. I want to say like 100 of us stood up. His eyes got huge, and he literally says, "Oh, hell no." So he goes to start making calls. The plan was they wanted to get us at least spread out to where our duty stations were, so they could put us in the barracks there before the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you put 100 Americans in downtown Seoul, South Korea, with no knowledge of the culture on their own for 4 days who are like 18 to 21 years old, there's going to be a major international incident. And it took a 2 or 3 star, it went up to the desk of a 2 or 3 star general where he was like, no, you guys will take these young soldiers today. We are not having them in the middle of one of the biggest cities in the world all weekend unsupervised for 4 days. Because it literally would have been
Mm-hmm.
Friday to Monday, and we would have went back on Tuesday. And I can just like knowing, especially now knowing what I know about young soldiers, stuff like that, the trouble that that would have caused would have been. They'd still be talking about it today, I imagine, on like CNN. It would have been horrible. So I can just imagine. There's two chaperones for 40 high school seniors with raging hormones and very little to no knowledge of the French culture. All the goodwill and things we did for France in World War II would have went straight out the window at the end of that 10 days. It would have been bad. All right. So, what did you think of the opening credits? See, this is definitely you can tell this is an older movie because it actually goes through like the opening credits, like once the movie starts and you're seeing different objects and as you're seeing
Right.
like, oh, directed by, produced, and you're not seeing however movies start nowadays. But like, what did you think of the eeriness of the opening credits?
Yeah, very old school, right? Like you said, not something that we're usually typically seeing in movies nowadays. In fact, most movies
They just start.
just kind of start and then they get all of that stuff out of the way at the end. So uh I was trying to figure out some like stuff in it. Like I think I see like it's a lot of his room, right? Like I think I see like the fan for sure in the
Yeah.
intro, stuff like that. Trying to pay attention to see if there was anything in it while it was happening, um, that I could like figure out what's going on here. But yeah, definitely different, right? A lost art, I would say, when it comes to films.
Okay, so let me.
Just like TV theme songs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like TV intros are severely shortened now
So let me
too.
ask you this: do you prefer? Because we're gonna get credits at the end regardless, right? Do you prefer? So like, I just went to go see Brave New World last week, right? And that movie just kind of starts off. You get your Marvel thing. Actually, I don't remember if there was the Marvel thing in the beginning.
They didn't do it. They didn't do the Marvel
Now that I'm thinking
Studios
about
like
it, yeah,
usual
I don't
intro.
remember that.
Yeah,
Wow. Um, but you know,
it's like a black and white version of it or something. Without it was like real quick, like boom, boom, we're in.
but normally, you get, and we've joked about it before, how on Family Guy they talked about, you don't know if that's the start of the movie or the production company's thing. You get a couple production company things nowadays, and then the movie just starts. You might get a couple names on the screen, but then you go right into it. If it's an action flick like Brave New World or something, you're probably going right into an action scene to get you, going for it. Do you prefer that, or do you prefer a slower burn like this, where you're kind of getting some credits, maybe setting up some story before you start and go into the movie?
I think it depends. This made it feel a little more dated than if it had just opened up. Like the rest of the movie didn't feel as dated as this credit sequence. So I feel like it can be a good thing or a hindrance, depending on what you're going for. Sometimes you could also say, well, it sets the vibe, right? Like it sets the vibe of the movie that you're about to watch. Um,
I think this.
so I guess it really
I think this
depends.
does set the vibe. I think for an action film, you kind of need to start off like going straight into it to set up the character or the action. I think for a movie like this, I do prefer this. Um, but like, I think you're right in that aspect. It might depend on the movie. We see our uh, we see Alex Browning getting ready and packing and doing his thing for our main character by Devin Sawa there, packing and getting ready for his trip to Paris because dude's going to Paris. I still don't get that, but that's a whole other thing. Yeah, so he's getting ready. He's packing. His parents come up. Oh, they're gonna pick you up at this time. Whatever. Right. So we get to the airport. This is where you're introduced to all our ancillary characters. We see Allie Larder without her trademark blonde hair. She's kind of playing a weird kid. She rose to fame a year or two before in Varsity Blues. I'm pretty sure people may not know her, but they may have recognized her from Heroes, like I said, now from Landman. Or if I give you three simple words, people will know who she is. Whipped cream bikini. That is probably her most famous thing. Is she played a young lady in this high school in Texas who was trying to get with the guy who ended up becoming a high school quarterback of this high school in Texas, and she tries to entice him. She goes out to go to her house, and then she comes back wearing nothing but whipped cream in a whipped cream bikini. And they made fun of this in I believe it was Not Another Teen Movie, where the previous Captain America, what can I not read? Chris Evans recreates the whipped cream bikini in a much different way. But yeah, he does. So she's there. We get Stifler, Sean William Scott, as Billy Hitchcock. We see him. We see a couple of other high school girls. We see Carter, played by Kara Smith. We see our couple chaperones, and they're going through the airport. This is a pre 9/11 airport, so you can just pull right up to the front door.
Mm-hmm.
People are just walking straight through everything. Right? There's very little security. It's wild. We get a throwback to your first choice for this podcast. Yes,
Airplane.
the Hare Krishna, who gives who's handing out things and gives something to Alex here. He starts having these premonitions when he's talking to the lady checking in his bag, right? It's been a while since I flew. What is it, like 50 pounds, I think, for the bag limit usually?
For the carry-on, yeah.
Well, no, I think,
No,
yeah,
for the
I think
check
it's usually
bag,
like
right?
50
For the check
pounds.
bag, yeah.
Maybe it's me. That bag seemed like it was probably a little more than 50 pounds. Now, maybe it's different because they're taking an international flight. I don't know. That could throw some things in there.
You can also it's 50 for how I know it. Like for Southwest, it's like 50 for it to be a free bag. If you go over that, you start
Yeah.
paying more. So he could have ended up.
I think when I flown Delta too, it was the same thing. Like the first 50 pounds are free. Anything that was like $1 a pound or something like that. So, he starts getting these weird premonitions, and that's when he starts seeing the board change in front of him. This is before the days of flat screens when the boards were like mechanical and flip flopped around. And what did you get of his first initial premonitions here? What were your thoughts going
Yeah, I was trying to figure out like if this was happening or if this was part of his in his head here with the flipboards. These are very old school, like you said. We don't have these anymore.
Yeah, everything's now on flat screens, or you can check the status on your phone. And like
Right.
if you go through the app, like especially if there's a gate change, you're logged into Southwest or whatever, it'll let you know. You'll get a ding on your phone. Hey, your gate's now
Mm-hmm.
8:23. So now, oh shit, I got to run halfway across the airport now.
Right. So I guess I was trying to figure out like so if it is a premonition, right? As you say here, what was it pointing to? Like, does it? Because I couldn't figure out what it like finished on or anything. It just kind of kept going. right?
There was it kept popping up like postponed, canceled. I think it was just mainly the premonition was probably letting them know that something is off and something is
Okay. And it would make sense then if everything was canceled or postponed, because after the plane blows up, they're going to do that.
wrong. I
So,
would hope that everything would get
right.
postponed. You know what? I just thought of too. This is I did not choose this movie with any ulterior
It's a
motives.
very timely,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is a really weird time to be talking about this with everything that's been going on. So um you get Todd, who's friends with Alex here, and obviously they have romantic interest in a couple of other young ladies who are on the flight. Once again, like I said, it could have been a whole nother. It could have been that teen raunchy comedy had you let them go to Paris for 10 days, right? It would have been a whole different movie. Um, but he does bring up a good thing. They're on this 747, right? They're obviously flying economy. They're not flying first class, right? But he brings up a good point of like, hey, maybe someone goes to the bathroom before you, leaves a horrible smelling mess in there. You go in the bathroom, and as you're leaving, one of these lovely young ladies goes in and now thinks you have left a horrible smell in there. I think I've talked to you about it before. You said you're not a public bathroom user too much. Um,
If I can avoid it, I'll avoid it.
if I gotta go, I gotta go. Plane, train, wherever. I'll poop on an airplane. Doesn't matter to me. I've pooped on Greyhound buses before. It is what it is. Um, but
Even if Stacy might walk in after you?
hey, man, look, we'll go back to first grade. Everybody poops. Um, so they're like, hey, we have to go do this before we get on the plane. It's a 7 hour flight to Paris. We got to make sure we poop before we get on the plane. Which, in all fairness, is not bad travel advice. Like, if you have the time,
No, it's great
like,
travel. That's something I would try to do because you don't want to be stuck. Look, the bathrooms are small. There's usually a line. It, it, that's not really. I don't think. I think I can say I've never pooped on an airplane. I'm pretty sure I can say, unless if I was like a baby and it was in my diaper. But like I usually even on long flights to like England or Paris or whatever, I usually don't have to go when I'm on a plane because I'll usually go beforehand.
yeah,
Um, I'll pee a lot on a plane. I've done that a
yeah.
lot. But you know, it's just not even because of like somebody might come in after me and be like, "Oh my god, this guy stunk it up." But it's like the
It's a hassle.
it's a long
It's a
flight.
hassle.
It's a hassle. I have to get through. Like maybe I'm a middle seat. I don't like being a middle seat, but like
Or if you're in
you
the
know, you
window,
have to get
you
up
gotta
and
go by people, go
yeah,
down, find the bathrooms. It might be people waiting, right? You don't
right,
even if there's nobody waiting, but there's someone in there, you don't know how long you're gonna be waiting there. Then if there's always a chance of
yeah,
like an older person coming up or like a kid. Do you let them go ahead of you because they're an older person or a kid, right? And there's always like, oh, can my kid go? Like, I don't want to be the guy that everybody's looking at now. This guy's a dick because he wouldn't let the kid go. The kid pees his pants. Like, now it's my fault the kid pees his pants. So now I gotta let the kid go in front of me, right? You know, um, yeah, I think this isn't bad advice in general. Like, if you're taking that long of a flight, you know, you gotta use the bathroom. Go ahead, take care of your business for you, right? So they do that. They hear like, hey, now boarding, blah blah blah. So they gotta hurry up. You get uh, old Billy there, who's rushing through because he was who knows where else. Um, have you ever been in a 747
uh,
or
I
like a
believe so.
large plane like that where there's like two or three seats on each side of the plane as far as like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
aisle, middle, window, and
International
then you
flight.
have
Yeah,
like three or four seats in the middle of the plane, like another three or four seats in the middle. Um,
yeah. When we flew to, I've gone to England a couple times and Paris for my honeymoon. So on those type of flights, it's usually
it, it
a
Yeah,
larger
it may not be
plane
a
with more
747. I
seats.
don't know what it is, 737 or 67 or whatever now. They change all this stuff up. I don't know. Or whatever the Airbus version is. But yeah, that for those long haul flights, that's what they use. Um, so yeah, that's a lot of seats in there. So um, here's another thought too. You got 40 different, and this was back in the day, right? Let's look at it now. You got let's say 50 people from a high school class. Is the school booking the flight? Are the parents booking the flight? Because now you've got seating, right? Um, there's obviously they're not chartering this flight, so there's people on board who are flying there for their own purposes, right? So you get these high school students mixed in with everyone else. Um, but as far as like, and this was back in the paper ticket days, so trying to figure out like who has seats, like it's a hassle now trying to when you book your flight online or on your phone, like, hey, I want a window seat, aisle seat, whatever the case is, right? Um, And then now there's the whole thing you find all the time, people wanting to switch seats because they didn't book in time and they want to sit next to their husband or their kid or whatever the case. So yeah, we're going through that. Hey, can you move seats so we and the two young ladies they're interested in so they can sit together, right? So he decides to be a nice guy. He gets up, sits down. What did you think of the next portion where he's sitting there? All of a sudden, this tray table doesn't work. Okay, cool. They do whatever. They start flying away. They hit some turbulence, right? And next thing you know, disaster starts ensuing. What are your thoughts for when this cropped up?
One thing kept it going. I was like, this has to be a dream or premonition because uh, I know the premise of this movie, so somebody has to survive this thing, right, for it to continue. And because, like I said, I knew the clip from the fifth movie where it talks about them getting thrown off the plane or whatever. So I definitely knew something was up with this part. It did create some hilarity for me though, because this one girl is about to get sucked out of the side of the airplane here, and the teacher, Miss Luton, is trying to reach for her as if the whole plane isn't about to go down anyway to like save her. I'm like, you're all dead. All
So
right.
there's a couple things here. I had not watched this original one. It's probably been at least a good 10, 15 years since I've seen this movie before I watched it today. Um, I forgot about the dream sequence. I completely forgot about the dream sequence. Um, and it took me a minute to realize, like, oh no, wait a minute, I think he's seen this. That's right. We touched on this last time. I've had a near death experience or a few before. Share one here. Third trip to Iraq. No, second trip to Iraq. Um, first patrol. First time doing our patrol was night patrol. We stopped for something dark, pitch black dark. Had to use the bathroom. So I went to the side of the road where there was a hole. Peed in the hole. Then I looked down in the hole. There was a couple bombs inside the hole waiting for us. I'm not gonna lie. Might have to bleep this. It fucking sucked. Got everybody back. EOD came out, took care of it. Um, had been in some firefights, had some things in my vehicle that sucked, but that's the one that kind of kicks it. I don't know what I would think would be going through my head if either A, I am dreaming this, like I'm on this flight and I see this entire premonition happen before. Right? That is bananas. Or if this isn't a premonition, like you're on flight 180 and this happens, and now you realize you have maybe a minute left to live. Like what is going through your head at this point?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, like you said, this is kind of timely. We had our first air disaster, um, where deaths, like multiple deaths, the whole plane. in a helicopter. Ended up colliding very close to me. I wasn't near the area at this time, but like
Yeah,
DC area here. So that scares me in the sense of I fly through that
airspace.
area to
Yeah,
come home anytime I fly. Uh, and then you start hearing about the stories of the people on board and how like some of them are kids, US figure skating
yeah.
stuff, or it's people afterwards saying, hey, they're texting me saying that the plane is landing, and I'm texting them, and all of a sudden my text turn green instead of the iPhone blue, and or stop delivering, and everybody's freaking out.
We
um,
had the Delta one.
that's one of those
We had the
things.
Delta one a couple weeks ago
Yeah,
where it ended up upside down on the runway.
thankfully nobody was killed in that one. But yeah, it's like, what do you do in those situations, especially something like an airplane, because there's no way out. You're done,
There's no
right?
chance
Like
of
if this
survival.
thing's
There's
blowing
no
up,
chance of survival. Like
right?
it's especially this one where it's kind of a slow. Like the unfortunate aspect with the
Yeah,
one over DC when the helicopter hit the plane, I'd say it was almost instantaneous. Like it wasn't.
it wasn't drawn out like
And
this.
obviously this is done for effect for the movie aspect, but the small fire, which leads to a hole, which leads to other fires. The hole gets bigger and things are getting
Hmm.
sucked out. Obviously, like I said, it's done for effect for us to get a more visual representation of it. But to be there and to see that, like, or go back, what was it last year? The one with the door plug or whatever, and the door came out in that plane in Alaska.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I like that's gotta be just I don't know. So yeah, all of a sudden he realizes, oh man, this is a premonition. Like he's seeing this happen. He starts freaking out, which causes him, a bunch of other people to get kicked off the plane. Um, Old Billy there, who's just getting on the plane, right? Because he's late, ends up
Hmm.
getting caught up in it and is now kicked off the plane. Understandably, the pilot's like, nope, you guys gotta go, right? Not won't knock the pilot for that. He's got a job to do. He's responsible for more lives on there, so he's doing his job. They're in the airport. Obviously, tensions are high. People are mad. The two chaperones, one of them says, "Oh, you know the whole French thing." You could have just said, "You know French. You probably should go first.
Yeah.
You know the whole French thing." Um, the acting isn't the best in some parts in this movie, or the writing.
Well, I think also she was like, I think she's the spouse of one of the directors or writers. I
Yeah,
read
yeah.
so. But I didn't think that was that odd, honestly. I think it was more like the not like just French, but the French thing, meaning like he's probably really into French culture and stuff, and she's probably not as much. So it's like the whole French thing. You got the culture, the language. You probably know where
He
you're
is probably
going,
the actual French teacher, right?
right?
So I'm pretty sure he's probably made that trip to Paris before, unless this is his first year working there, or his first year they really get there.
And this line haunts her. This is like a survivor's guilt moment for the rest of her existence.
Okay,
She's like always constantly re-talking about this line and saying, I told him to
so two
go.
thoughts for you. One, if you're one of those 7 or 8 or whatever who make it off the plane, you're sitting there in the airport and you see the plane explode. What is going through your head at that point?
I'd kind of be more like Billy, I think, and it'd be like trying to keep uh, Alex as close to me as possible. Or constantly asking him questions to make sure. Like, I don't think I would turn on him the way that Carter did. Right? It would be like, this guy saw this coming somehow. I'm going to stick with him so I survive the rest of my life.
I'm alive because of this guy. That's the first thing that's going through my head.
Yeah, thankful.
Two, that's gotta be a traumatic thing to know that you should have been on that plane. Well, no,
Hmm.
there's no gotta. I know for a fact the survivor's guilt from that, out of everyone there is. That's something I deal with myself. When someone else is killed, dies, and you should have been, it should have been you, or you should have been there. And it happens so close to the airport. Like they can, not only can they see the explosion, or one of them sees the
Feel
explosion,
it. Yeah.
but yeah, the aftershocks obviously go through and destroy all the glass. Um, oh, and we forgot Clear, Ali Larder. Clear decides to get off the plane just because. Um, this whole thing is bananas. So obviously they got to be segregated. The National Transportation Safety Board, which by the time this airs, who even knows if they'll have anybody working for them anymore? We don't know. Um, and the FBI have to get involved and they have to investigate this stuff. This is serious things. Like plane just died, hundreds of people just died. I think now they might look more at him as far as like, oh, we have to get off the plane as did he do something? I don't know if they would have looked at him as much in 2000 of did he do something that caused the plane crash. I think there's a distinct difference of now it'd be like, yeah, oh no, like we're holding him until
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
like parents are like, yeah, rights be damned or whatever. Like we're holding him until we can definitively rule out that he didn't cause this plane crash, as compared to in 2000 where obviously they want to talk to everybody, but I think it's a little different. Um, so here we are, 39 days later. Weird time, 39 days. Okay, cool, whatever. Um, So first thoughts in 39 days is that's a pretty quick turnaround to get a memorial statue done up for the people who
Mm-hmm.
died in the tragedy. Like to try even, I'm pretty sure you know about this. The what was it? The Willie Mays? No, who was the statue in St. Louis or Kansas City that got destroyed and beheaded a couple years ago and had to replace?
Oh yeah, who was that?
Was it Willie Mays? Was it Jackie Robinson?
I think it was Jackie. Yeah.
It took them like between getting the money together and then going through everything they have to go through for to get the design and everything else and to get it built. It took like 6 months, maybe longer. I'm not even sure. I think it took 6 to 8 months, if not longer, for them to be able to get the statue like finished and done and then represented. They got it. And maybe they just went with the generic eagle.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
then
part of it. They just bought a big eagle, and then all you have to really do then is the plaque.
and
So
do the names, yeah. And they're holding the memorial service 39 days later. Like
yeah.
that's usually memorial services come pretty quick for major tragedies and stuff like that.
Well, I think they did this intentionally, right? Because they say like 39 days for the 39 students that were lost. Because then the 40th person, right now, yeah, right. The 40th person was the teacher. Did 40 die, or was it 40 altogether before they got off the plane too? They said something about 39 days for 39 students or something. I thought. Um,
Tensions are high, right?
yeah.
Um, and everyone's gonna grieve and go through things in their own way. The teacher there, Mrs. What is her name?
Miss
Miss
Luton.
Luton.
Yeah.
She wants nothing to do with Alex. Um, Part of that is probably the survivor's guilt. I don't know. Like I can understand it's not going to be for everybody, but I think that might be more of a bonding experience than like get away from me. I don't want you around me. Um,
Yeah, for some reason they're all blaming him when all he did was warn them and get them thrown off the plane. Like they would have all died if he didn't do that. So it's not like the plane. I could understand hating him more if the plane didn't blow up afterwards, and they're like, "Oh, great! Now we have what they say, like
a day,
we lose half a day in Paris
yeah.
or whatever."
Um,
But yeah, I don't know.
so yeah, Alex is still being talked to by the FBI. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Obviously, there's trauma there, trying to deal with that. But then after the ceremony, um, Carter, no, not Carter. I'm sorry, Todd is the first one to go. So we see Todd at his home, right? And this is where we get death not as a physical manifestation, but just the idea of death coming for you. Like you managed to escape, but you're not escaping this. So Todd is in the bathroom and there's I can't even really just do justice to describe what happens to Todd. There ends up water on the floor. A gust of wind comes in. He cuts himself shaving. There's a gust of wind that comes in, closes the door. There's water on the floor leaking from his toilet. He slips. Some weird stuff happens. Something ends up around his neck and he ends up strangling himself. He also ends up knocking down the shampoo bottle in his bathtub, which then causes him to not be able to get footing in his bathtub because the shampoo is slick. Which, yes, that is accurate. Uh, if you don't have a bath mat or them little like ducks or like sticky things on your bathtub, you can slip and fall and hurt or kill yourself in your bathtub, folks. Like that is legitimate. So that he can't get a good grip, can't stand up, and he dies. And then it's believed from his family that he took his own life.
Because the water goes away, which is that's the weirdest part of this whole movie, I think.
That is. I would say it's also not out of the realm of possibility for his father to believe that he might have taken his own life, dealing with the grief of what just happened. I mean, look, obviously that's how it appears, right? And that is probably the best explanation for that, right? Like there's no other way to really.
Maybe I think they do make a leap here. Whoever decided, the coroner or whatever, because there are several things. Like I can see the water disappearing. You're like, all right, so we don't know how he got to this point. But with the shampoo making it slick, and you would see that his feet were maybe like
Yeah,
covered in the shampoo. Like you would think he would have just like cut himself with the razor or hung himself normally. Like it took a lot of steps for him to get to the way that it's set up when it doesn't seem as natural.
it did. But
So
what other
yeah,
explanation do you have? What other explanation can you come
yeah.
up with?
I would start listening to the person that had the foresight to get him off the plane.
Would you really?
No, no.
But yeah, so like that's the most reasonable explanation, right? Is that he probably tried to take his own life. He's dealing with grief. It's unfortunate, right? But that's what his father believes. Alex doesn't believe that, but one, it's kind of hard to tell a grieving father what to believe in that point. Two, like I get it, but Alex legitimately just sounds crazy. Like, oh no, death is coming for us. Like, come on. So he ends up talking to Clear. He says they want to see the body. Um, so they break into a funeral home, which I don't know why anybody would want to break into a funeral home. Um, two, especially when a guy like Tony Todd is running the funeral home. Like I imagine this is not the first time. Like Tony Todd didn't just come there like that moment for that. Like he's probably been running that funeral home in that town for quite a while. He's a very distinctive person. I think he's the only person of color I remember seeing in this movie. And let's be realistic, he's got a hell of a voice.
Not a very DEI movie, is it?
But let's be
Um,
realistic, he also has a very distinctive voice. You're gonna know who that guy is. if that guy is running the funeral home, you're gonna know who he is because his voice is creepy as hell and he's scary and he's gonna stand out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, maybe. I guess it depends on how small the town is, I guess. Like, do you see this guy at the coffee shop a lot, or is he usually withdrawn and mostly.
Well,
I couldn't tell you who runs the funeral homes
well,
near. There's a funeral home in my small town that I came from. I couldn't tell you who ran that.
the town doesn't seem that big, right? Now, granted, we don't get to see a whole ton of it,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't seem that big. So I don't know. Also, dude, you're not wearing any gloves dealing with the dead body. Like, what are you doing here, right? But he talks
Yeah.
about how he can see like scratch marks around his neck, basically indicating that Todd was trying to get this thing off his neck. So Todd didn't kill himself. And this is where we get our first hints, and this is where he explains that death is coming for us all. So real quick before we get to my next question for you, uh, William Bloodworth, character Tony Todd plays, says, "Shush, you'll wake the dead." After Alex and Clear break into the coroner's office, Tony Todd starred in a remake of Night of the Living Dead, which showed the recently dead mysteriously turning to life and attacking humans. So this was a little shout out to that. So let's say you're Todd, or not Todd. I'm sorry, you're Alex. You break into this funeral home, and this creepy dude is running the funeral home, and he's telling you this. What are your thoughts here?
Getting the hell away from him. Um, I guess this is another kind of puzzling moment of the movie here because we also know that, or I know that he's in other movies and stuff. So is he like the de facto guy that explains this whole like death has a
Yeah, he kind of
plan
plays
type
like
of
a
thing?
funeral director in all of them, or running a funeral. At least we know. I can't remember where the other ones take place, but at least we know for sure that Part 5 takes place relatively close in
Before then, so
proximity
yeah.
because they all end up on the same flight. So like they're in the same area at least, but like they're not far away from each other. But yeah, he basically plays the same. He plays the same character in, I believe, in all five.
Yes, that's interesting that that like it makes sense. Like this is a good I would say like script writing thing of like have the more like the funeral home person maybe give them a little bit of like the explanation about that thing. He works with death, he's seen death a lot type of thing,
Yeah,
right? He's probably heard tons of stories. But more on like the like if we're just looking at the everyday life thing of it, I don't know if I would trust what the funeral director is saying more about death than like somebody else, right? Like the way people think about death or afterlife or destiny and all that kind of stuff changes person to person. That like I'm not sure if this would be enough for me to be like that guy is exactly right. But I feel like also I've never been in the position of these kids where you're looking for a purpose, you're looking for an answer, and he gives you one.
that's what I was gonna bring up. You also just didn't have somebody have a premonition about the plane exploding, right? And then that's exactly what happened, right? And then the same guy who had the premonition about a plane exploding, like all of a sudden runs to Todd's house right after Todd killed himself. So obviously, at least
Right.
one of these kids is like knows something weird is going on. So you know, yeah, that's and Tony Todd was a perfect character for this. I think that voice just does it. Um, that voice makes such a huge difference in that. So obviously there's still some internal issues between everybody involved. Um, the FBI is wondering why he's hanging around the house. Um, Up our next death is, why can I not remember this poor teacher's name?
Billy. Oh no, Miss
Miss
Luton.
Luton.
Yeah.
Our next death is Miss Luton, right? No, I'm sorry. Our next death is not Miss Lou. Our next death is Valerie. No, I'm sorry, not Valerie.
It's Valerie
Yeah,
Luton. Yeah.
is our next death is
Oh no, the
Terry.
girl that gets hit by the
Yes, our
bus.
next death is
Yes.
Terry.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so once again, this is a small enough town where you can keep running into the same people over and over. Alex and Clear are having coffee, talking about things, and this is where he's coming up with his idea of like, hey, death is taking us in of the order of how everybody has gone, right? So they're trying to figure out who was next and everything else. I think at this point, Clear's not totally behind it. She kind of gets some of it, but not. This is where Billy almost gets run over by Carter because Carter has to whip around because he's still mad. I don't know why he's mad at this dude for saving his life, but
40 days
he's
later, still
he's still
upset.
mad, so he's got to whip his classic car around and get out, cause some issues with this dude, right? Miss Luton happens to be nearby. I don't even remember seeing her until the end of this scene, where she just happens to pop up when the arguments start happening and everything. Um, Terry's the only one with any sort of common sense. Like, look, we need to stop this. Like, this is just crazy. And this death is the one that just literally comes from out of nowhere. Like, I remember the first time I watched this, and I was just like, "What the hell just happened?" That bus was traveling way too fast for the downtown area.
I Yeah, I saw this death coming because of the window
Yeah,
premonition that he has with the bus coming. And also anytime a person runs out on the street like that and they're like mid conversation not looking anything, I start to tense up as it is. But any movie or show that pulls this trick always has the bus flying at in speeds that they would have heard it coming or uh are totally
yeah.
unsafe. They're maybe blowing
That
stop
guy should
signs.
not
Like
have been
I don't
driving a
know.
bus. I would love to have seen the investigation on that.
Had to be going like 60 miles an hour on this small
Yeah,
street.
like in the middle of downtown, right? Um, blood flies all over everybody. Everybody's traumatized again. So once again, let's say you're the FBI agents, and this is the third time this dude's like, what is going through your head if you're these two FBI agents? Like, what is going on here? These are some weird coincidences, but are they
You
really
would
coincidences? Like, what the hell?
Well, that's the thing. Like all of these deaths until we get to Miss Luton, like there's no actual evidence that it's anything other than what it seems to be, right? Like there's multiple witnesses at this one in particular that would know that like Alex didn't like push her in front of a
Yeah,
bus. So like obviously he didn't cause this. And then there's no evidence he was in the bathroom for Todd's, and obviously he didn't blow up the plane. So it's like we're suspicious, but like I this is how I could see it actually have been a spec script for the X Files because I think these two agents would have just been Mulder and Scully,
yeah.
right? And one of them would have believed, and one of
Mulder
them
would have
wouldn't have,
definitely
and
believed
that
death is coming
yeah,
after him, and Scully's the voice of reason, just saying, look, like you said, okay, maybe he did have a weird feeling and they got off the plane. He obviously wasn't there when Todd killed himself. Six witnesses plus whoever else is in the middle of this downtown area sees that she just walked out into the middle of the street by herself with a bus driver who's probably drunk going 75 miles an hour down a city street. Like he has nothing to do with that. Like these are all just weird coincidences that are happening. And yeah, this is where this is where they need to call Mulder and Scully in and figure out what's going on. We got Miss Luton's death, right? One, why are we being a creep about this? Like, why are we like just roaming around outside in the dark outside her house like that? Like,
yeah,
that's creepy from
messing with her tires and her
that's
car.
that's creepy from
This is where I can understand the FBI being like, look, this kid's gonna make her brakes go or something.
Not only that, but this is creepy from the aspect of Miss Luton is not a she's a fairly attractive woman, right? I'm sure she has probably had many students who have had crushes on her in her career teaching it, right? Like I can't imagine that's like no, like that's totally inappropriate and just really creepy in so many levels. He's just outside her window in the dark, wandering around, pacing back and forth. Like, yeah, I'd have called the FBI too. Um, yeah, I'm totally with them on, hey, get in the car. We need to have a talk. Like, what the hell are you doing? Gotta wonder about, obviously, Miss Luton has some issues she's got to work through. This is her hometown. She wants to leave now because everything reminds her of the students and everybody who died. Get it. Maybe a fresh new start is the best thing for her in the situation. Not knocking that. Her just throwing her tea from out of nowhere, like that makes no sense.
This was infuriating with the tea thing because I've heard stories like this when it comes to plates and glasses and stuff. When you have super hot liquid
Yeah,
like that, and then you go to your frozen
it,
vodka
it's
or
gonna yeah
whatever
it's
is
gonna
in the
well no the
freezer,
vodka's not gonna freeze,
it
but it's
makes
just
it
ice
crack.
in the water, yeah, or the
Yeah,
vodka.
yeah. And it cracks the cup because you had the extreme heat and then now the extreme cold, and you're pouring it into like a porcelain or glass cup, coffee mug, and it cracks. Like that happens
Yeah,
all the time. And she doesn't notice that this stuff is even like leaking as she's walking over and then like dangling in front of her
but
top of the
okay.
computer.
Let's also talk about one. Okay, so I'm not a tea connoisseur, but I make a cup of tea that I take with me to work every day. Right. So put the tea in the cup. You pour the boiling hot water into the mug. You got to let the tea steep for at least a couple of minutes, right? Depending on what kind of tea it is, there's probably more or less. I don't know. I use the basic Lipton tea, right? I let it steep for about 5-10 minutes or so. Then I start adding all my ingredients. She put the tea in the cup. She puts the boiling water in there, and then she's trying to take a sip of it like right after. So not only is the water still boiling hot, but there's no tea flavor in the water. And then she takes it and just dumps throws it out on her floor. Okay, I don't get that. Two, you got a lot of stress going on. There's a lot of things. You might need a drink. I'm not gonna knock that. Who in the hell drinks vodka out of a coffee mug?
I guess she's like, I'm already dirtying one cup. I don't want to have like, especially she's moving, right? So she's packing up stuff. So this might be the only cup she has available to her.
Look,
I'll give her the benefit of the doubt there.
I won't. You know what? If it's that, if you're that stressed out and things are that weird,
Straight from the
yeah, you're
bottle.
taking that bottle. You're going straight from the bottle. We know this. This is not what like because I saw that and I'm like, why is she drinking vodka from a coffee mug? Like, and it's not like she's trying to hide it from like her coworkers or something, right? Like she's in the home. Like, I don't know. That was weird. But yeah, the whole aspect of the crack in the cup, and it's not a small crack. This is a large one. Like as we see as she's walking by, it goes through like the entire bottom half of the mug. So I'm wondering how this mug is even staying together, basically at this point. She's leaking vodka on the floor. Then all of a sudden, some other weird stuff happens, and there's a fire, and she ends up with a glass shard in her neck, and their house is catching on fire. Alex breaks in, or he doesn't break in. He goes into the house, and he gets in there. She's trying to pull down a rag for whatever reason, and she ends up pulling an entire knife block down. Now she gets a butcher knife through her chest. Alex attempts to pull a knife out, or he's there to help her. But there's an explosion. The knife goes further into her chest. Now he pulls the knife out, and now he's got to run. But he also left his fingerprints at the crime scene. He left a footprint at the crime scene, so it can look like he killed her. But can it? Because he was literally just with the FBI agents. Like,
And wouldn't you think that whoever the coroner is would be able to tell that the glass shard or
yeah, like
started
like
it
they can
first or
investigate
like I
all
don't know.
this and they can piece this together to
Right.
find out what happened, right? Especially like I said, he was literally just with the FBI agents. So unless he's the Flash, he's not going to get there in time to do all of this stuff. It's just not easy. And oh, by the way, old Billy there happens to be driving by her house and sees him running out as the house explodes, right? So I get that it can look like he did it, but come on, like some of this is hard for me to like get behind. Of like, come on. But once again, very interesting death. They're starting to get very creative with this stuff. Clear calls everybody together because Alex has gone into hiding, right? Okay, obviously so. Like this would be, yeah, I'd want to get away from anybody and everything. They end up on a beach or whatever. So they all get together. They decide to go to Clear's dad's cabin on some lake, right? But while they're going through all this, uh, what was his name? Carter
Carter and
freaks
Billy.
out after like 40 days. I can't blame him on this one because you just went through all this. Your girlfriend got hit by a bus in front of you, and then the weird things happen with Miss Luton. And then you hear this guy saying like death has a plan and it's killing us all in the order of where we were supposed to die on this plane, right? Honestly, this would start making sense to me right about now if I'm one of these kids. Especially if I'm a senior in high school. Like, what else do I really have to believe in at this point? Like, how can I refute this? Like, yes, it all seems like circumstantial, but like, come on, like this is looking like yeah, we're all meant to go, and it's coming for us all. So he decides to freak out and play with death, and he's driving like he's batshit insane. He lets go of the wheel. He's speeding all over the place. He punches Sean William Scott in the face or elbows him in the face. Then he decides he's just going to park on the train tracks after the little things come down, and he's just going to let fate take its course. What are you thinking here? After his mental breakdown,
I mean I could kind of agree with the breakdown here, right? Like you're being told that there is like you survive this plane, and at first you're probably thinking that's a blessing, right? Now of course he never acted like that with Alex, but
at
let's just
some point
say
to
you feel
himself, he's
like
got to feel lucky to be alive.
right, right. And your girlfriend survived too. Hallelujah, right? But then as things and 39 days have happened where death has not been coming for them for
Yeah,
whatever reason. It's been on
he took a
pause,
vacation. He had to
right?
go to France himself.
Death was figuring out the new design, right? Just took him a bit. Um he wanted to come up with like the goriest worst ways people can die for these people. Um so he's sitting there. Now he's being told by Alex, this kid he doesn't like even, that death is still coming for us. There is an order, and you're
Well, he
next.
doesn't necessarily say he's next, but also let's look at the fact his girlfriend gets smashed by a bus in front of him,
Yes, just like a day or
and
two
then
ago.
Miss Luton's weird, wacky death as well. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
like let's put all this together in context. Like, I think that's enough for any human brain to
yeah.
just be like, nope, I'm done. I'm not even trying to figure this out.
So I could kind of understand him acting out this way and parking on the train tracks and like almost wanting to be in control of his own death at
I'm
this
in
point
control of
because
my
he feels
life.
like he lost
I,
control.
I control my own
Right,
life.
he lost control. He's being told that there's a plan and that might not be any escape, so he ends up saying, "I'll take control myself." Then, you kind of see this also happen with like real people that have like cancer diagnosis or stuff that is not a good outlook, where maybe they say, I'm going to do some of the stuff I've always wanted to do, then I'm going to end it
Yeah.
myself. So that way I don't get to a certain point. And it's not that killed me. You know, like they want some element of something that they can control. So I can kind of understand him doing this. But then, you know, I think also reacts really realistically when he finds out that the train is coming. And it's
And
almost
now he
like,
can't get.
do I really want
Yeah.
to do this?
Yeah. Once it becomes realistic and that train's getting closer, he's probably starting to like all the adrenaline and stuff is leaving his body now, and like his common sense is kicking back in. He's like, "Hey, man, you sure you really want to do this? This is probably gonna be pretty goddamn painful."
Yeah, not the way to go. I would think getting hit by a train. Maybe he's like, hey, instead of a plane, it's a train, and
And especially once he's trying to get out and he can't.
yes, yeah, that is. So you know, Alex has
His
to go
door
over,
locks
and
on him from out of nowhere. Like he can't get his seatbelt. His
yeah,
seatbelt is stuck. Like, yeah, Alex saves him.
not the best.
Alex saves him. Cool. Hey, great. Um, but by Alex saving him, it threw everything off again because um, whoever was supposed to be next, like, got skipped again, right? So what do we do? And old Stifler has to eat it here. Uh,
Yeah, I saw this coming when they keep showing that thing.
the hunk of metal,
Was
I
it
think, from his
glass or
car or
whatever?
whatever.
Metal. Yeah.
I saw it coming.
And he's talking about like, I'm not gonna hang out with you anymore. You're death and all that. Death is coming. Stay away from me. And then I'm like, oh,
I
you're getting
saw
it.
it coming, but not to the extent that it came.
No, like halfway cutting off his head.
Decapitating him, yeah, I didn't see that coming. I thought maybe like something in
Yeah.
the chest, or maybe like it just goes like in the middle of his head or something like that, right?
Right, right. I thought it was gonna get him in the chest.
Um,
Like I thought it'd
yeah,
be
like
like
yeah,
protruding like that or
where he
something.
can look down at it or whatever. Or like I said, I can see it. You know, like you see in a lot of horror movies, some, right when,
Yeah, he probably had no clue what happened to him.
but when it just decapitates you, like that's gotta be just. And then once again, you're these other three, like what, like, come on, man. He ends up at Clear's father's cabin, right? Because now he's hiding out. Because now he's like, oh, I'm next. From his little. Oh, by the way, he got the diagram because as he was watching TV with his dad one day, it showed
Yeah.
what they believed how the plane crash happened because it was like a spark or something from here, a seal from here messed up, and it showed like how this thing traveled through the plane to cause the explosions. And then he had the seating chart, and he realized it's going through, it's taking them in that order because that's where they were sitting at, where they were all sitting at on the plane. And he's eating nothing but canned food, and he's turning into like a Ted Kaczynski. Like if he stays in this place, he's gonna go bananas if he's not already.
He's talking to him. He's like talking to death, you
Ah,
know.
you didn't think I'd see that coming, did you? He does manage to escape it with that one thing that was coming through the door, right? So he does seem to have a handle on what death is doing. The hook that he,
Was it really though? Because didn't he realize that it was um the seating chart was wrong because he had moved, right?
yeah,
So it wasn't even his time to begin with. So maybe death wasn't coming for him at that
or
point.
maybe it took Death a minute to realize, oh wait a minute, you're actually not next in the queue
Yeah, true.
because he switched seats. So Clear is next in the queue. So once again, we go back to Clear. It's weird for me to see Ali Larder with her brown hair like this. Like she's had that
Yeah.
blonde hair pretty much her whole career. I forgot she had the brown hair in this until the end. It was definitely just weird. Um, So now got some weird things happening at her house, where there's a lightning storm, or there's a storm, and lightning hits, and there's electrical wires, and she's got to free her dog and water. She almost gets electrocuted, and then she gets stuck in a car in her garage, and her garage door open and tries to impale her, and all this other.
This might sound bad. I was more worried for the dog this whole time. I was like, get him free, get him free.
I wonder if this is on the Dog Diary website.
He
Yeah, he
survives,
does
thank God.
survive. So if not, it needs to be accurate. He does survive. I'm not gonna lie. I was worried about that guy as well. But somehow, um, they managed to escape. Like they managed to pull it off, right? I honestly thought Alex died uh,
Me too. I was kind of shocked to see him in the
for a
final
minute
scene then. I was like,
until,
wait, he
yeah,
survived this?
he just went through a shock. Apparently, he did not get convicted for the teacher's murder. Um, Apparently, they went through the full investigation and realized he couldn't have done it. Sure, I don't believe he would have gotten off that easy, but okay, sure, why not? Um, so here we are, 6 months later. They're in Paris. So, if you are one of these three, would you be hanging out with the other two after all this happened?
I feel like you have to. Like, I feel like if you know that he has seen visions, I'd be hanging out with him to make sure that I am not the next one. Or maybe, look, they are kind of like friendly now to where they would want the other one to survive. So, like, they have to interfere to make sure that it, skips them or whatever and goes to the next
Yeah,
person.
Carter's mood changed drastically in the 6 months, where he's not so antagonistic towards him anymore, which I did not see.
He got therapy.
Maybe he worked through his grief. I don't know exactly what it was, but yeah, he wasn't such a dick anymore. Like, there's really no other way to put it.
I think once he saw Billy die, he realized like, oh crap, this is legit. It skipped me, it hit him. Now I have to work with these other two to make sure we just keep dodging it for the rest of time.
They got to start a throuple. It looks like. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, so maybe some perks there.
With Ali Lauder, yeah, definitely some perks. Um, they're in France. They decided to make it. They made it to France for him, right? So, my next question to you is: you're friendly with the other two. You guys are hanging out. You finally make it to France, and things seem to be going well. Are you bringing this stuff back up again, especially if you're Alex, or are you kind of just letting it lie? Like, we know what's out there. We don't really need to talk about it.
Well, I think it makes sense to bring it up here 6 months later, just because they have made it to Paris. So it is kind of like a, um, almost like pour one out for the homies who have died, and wasn't that crazy what we went through, and we have to continue to go through this for the rest of our lives, pretty much.
Maybe they're the ones who invented the thruple. Have you ever heard of a thruple? I just made the word up. Here's how it's gonna work. So he's still going on. Clear is like, look, man, you gotta stop. Or no, Alex brings it up a little bit, and then Carter keeps bringing it up about who is next and so on and so forth. And then the premonitions,
Yeah, he's teasing them
yeah,
that he's
and
next,
the
right?
premonitions start happening again. So Alex is like, look, I gotta get out of here, right? But then somehow it passes from Alex to Clear. Clear starts having a premonition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Alex almost gets hit by a bus, right? He manages to pull out, get away at the last second. The bus has to swerve. Then the whole Rube Goldbergian thing happens, right? And next thing you know, um, Carter doesn't make it. We don't get to see it, but the film ends as the a sign is slamming down on Carter.
Yeah, kind of a bummer way to end.
So obviously, well, I wouldn't say obviously sequel game. So if this were made nowadays, that would probably be that, or there would be another scene for a post credits.
Yeah. Like the post credit scene is like the it's Tony Todd sitting in his funeral home like I've warned them.
He did say he would see you soon.
Yeah,
Like, and
true.
look, let's be honest. Him saying that in that voice when the guy running the funeral home is telling you, "I'll see you soon," that's creepy as shit.
Yeah, so I guess my question is with I did not think that I only thought one person would survive this, and it was Ali Larder because I know she's in the next one. Like I've seen the cover of it. So like I knew she was in the next one. So do they like not touch on some of these characters that don't make it to the next one, or they like kill them off screen? Because like it doesn't say Devin is in the next movie, so
I'm not gonna lie.
um
It's been like 10, 15 years since I've seen
too
this
long.
this one. It's probably been just as long since I've seen Final Destination 2. Um, so I can't give you a good answer to that one. I don't know.
Do you have a favorite one, or are they all kind of like just like have you watched one more recently
This is the most recent one I
because you're
saw.
like I like that one?
No, I got this is
Okay.
we'll go back to something I've talked about before. This is a prime example, another one of those that get lost in streaming, where it can if it's
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
if it's on T if you had cable, it's on TNT or FX or Sci-Fi. Like I know Sci-Fi used to play these a lot. If it's on Sci-Fi or FX or
Do
something
you
like that.
do you not have like the you don't have like the Blu-ray pack or anything?
Funny you should mention that. I have at least the first three on DVD. Maybe the first. I have a good number of them all on DVD. And while I was watching this,
Did you watch it on DVD or
I watched this
Max
on Max.
today?
But whilst I was doing that, I was like, they gotta have a box set with all of these in there, right?
They do, yeah.
And I ordered it. It was $15 from
Okay.
Amazon. It's a Blu-ray.
Yeah, because this was
It was 40% off. It was a Blu-ray set. Um, $15 with Amazon, and I'm getting it today because it was like if
oh
it was
nice.
one of those you can get it today if you buy like $15 worth more stuff, and I was like, well, you got me hooked. So then I went and found some other stuff to buy for $15, and I should all get it this afternoon.
That's awesome. I looked into it because I do not have Max, so I was like, "What's the best cost-effective way to to watch this currently?" So I was like, "This Blu-ray." Because I have a gift card for Amazon still, so I'm like, this Blu-ray would cost me like $3 real, and I would have all of them. But I'm like, what if I don't like it? So maybe not. Then I'm like looking at, do I resub to Max for 1 month and for 16.99 or
Yeah.
whatever, and watch as much stuff as I can, or do I just pay the 2.99 on Fandango at home and do the rental? That's what I did. So that's how I watched the movie.
So yeah, I will now own all of this. So some other quick notes. Talked about the Hare Krishna devotee at the airport distributes pamphlet of death related titled Alex. Like I said, that is a good tie back to your first choice of airplane with the Hare Krishna guy there. Uh, Around 49 minutes in, the Alka Seltzer sequence, after Terry gets hit by the bus, had to be extended because test audiences were still kind of shook and recovering from her just getting
Hmm.
wailed by the bus from out of nowhere. So once they talk to test audiences and stuff, they realize, okay, let's give them another 15, 20, 30 seconds with the Alka Seltzer stuff to kind of decompress before we move on to the next scene. So here we go. 5 historical people have had similar experiences to the concept of premonitions and cheating death. Alfred G. Vanderbilt, an aristocrat, had a ticket aboard the Titanic in 1912 but canceled his trip. 3 years later,
Hmm.
he perished in the sinking of the Lusitania, and there's an urban legend.
Oh, okay.
Um, there's an urban legend concerning a stoker. I don't know who that is. Frank Lux Towers, who survived all three sinkings of the ocean liners Titanic, Lusitania, and the Empress of Ireland in 1914. William Churchill said that on one of his frequent car rides in London in World War II, an inner voice told him to avoid sitting in his usual seat in the car that one day, and thus he avoided death when a bomb dropped next to that side of the car. William Stead, a psychic who perished in the sinking of the Titanic, is rumored to have had premonitions. And Adolf Hitler claimed when he was a young soldier in World War I, one day he was looking for a place to sit down in a trench with his fellow soldiers when a voice literally pulled him off the place to sit down into the opposite side of it. Moments later, a bomb exploded in the trench, killing all of them but Hitler. There's also stories that apparently I've seen both things of being verified and being hokum about I believe was a British soldier that had a chance to shoot a young Adolf Hitler in World War One, but because he kind of looked sad and pathetic, and I think might have been unarmed at the time, and let him go. Imagine how history could have changed had not happened. Also, Seth MacFarlane was supposed to have been on a flight.
Yes.
That ended up crashing into the World Trade Center. He overslept. And because he overslept, he missed his flight out of Logan International Airport. And now we have Family Guy and American Dad and Ted and various other things. All right, so let's see. So for IMDb, I don't know why they just closed. Let's look at some ratings. So on IMDb, this received. I really should have looked this up, and I meant to, and I did not, and I'm sorry, because I'm vamping here. And of course, this is when my internet decides it wants to go slow. Okay, so what do we?
IMDb, I have it here if you need it.
What do you got for IMDb?
6.7 out of 10. Metascore of 39. And I believe Rotten Tomatoes was like a 36 or something.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm looking up the Rotten Tomato score, as our people over the pond call it. I will say that as the series went along, they ended up trying to find more and more interesting ways to kill people. And some of them are really interesting to see. Some of them are just totally absurd. I am still one of those people who will absolutely positively not drive behind a log truck after seeing what happened in Final Destination 2 with this log truck. And there's many people online who feel the same way. Mm-hmm. It's about the same. So tomato meter with 98 reviews, it's at 37%. The popcorn meter, it's at 68. So it's about a 70, right? So it seems this is one of those, the audience likes it a lot more, and gives it probably around a 7 out of 10, but critics give it a low score. And I don't know if that's just because it's a horror movie or something like that, but
yeah, I feel like a lot of horror movies don't get the high critic scores
unless it's something really unique. Like I think
groundbreaking.
Jordan Peele's, I think Get Out did, but and there are a couple. Quiet Place might have been looked at pretty good by critics. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah,
but for a long time, like audiences would love horror movies. They might be number one movie in America. They might even be like top 10 year over year, or like in the movies that year. Critics would not give them a good review, and I don't know. I don't know why that was, and I'd be interesting to hear that why from a critic, if there was a reasoning behind it. But it just, I mean, I on some of them I can 100% understand. Like some of your slasher flicks are really just there just to see boobs and people get stabbed and beheaded and killed. Like
Mm.
some of those don't need to be critically acclaimed. They're there for a separate purpose. So let's see. For me, like I said, I haven't watched this in literally 10 to 15 years, if not longer. There was a lot I forgot that happened during this movie. I already owned some of them. We just talked about I did end up buying all of them on disc. And the new one that comes out in May, Final Destination Bloodlines, as it is called, I will probably, if I can remember, get around to go seeing that in the theaters. But for this one, I give it a 4, maybe 4.5. I think the premise is completely original. Obviously, I think later movies kind of got tired, and like I said, it's got some ups and downs. And when you're trying to string everything together, or like I said, when you're trying to string everything together, it becomes difficult. And then at some point, it kind of follows in the tropes of, hey, how can we just show half naked women and come up with a really weird and creative death, or a death that nobody can see coming, but we can telegraph from a mile away. So it has some that aren't good. But the initial one, I give it a solid 4, maybe 4. I have an idea of where you rank it,
All
but
right.
where do you put this at, Jordan?
Well, I love lording this over you because, like, for people that listening to this, we never share our thoughts before we record. I don't think there's ever been a moment where we've texted ahead of time saying really loved it, really liked it,
And I
didn't
don't
like it,
I don't
anything
think
like
we've
that.
ever discussed that aspect either. I think it just came like let's just talk about it
Yeah, I
at the
think it's
end.
just something that like is we saved it for a certain section of the podcast, and then it just kind of becomes like if I tell you ahead of time, then we kind of go into this.
The whole conversation is different. From the time we
Yeah,
start, the
yeah,
entire
yeah.
conversation is going to be different. Because then, and I'm not sure how you feel about this, but if there's things you don't like, you're going to start picking more of those out during that conversation. And this is why I didn't enjoy it. This is,
Right, right.
or with certain things, this is why I really love this, and this is, this was great, blah blah blah. Instead of just the actual conversation we have about the movie itself. So, I,
Yeah. So where do you think I land on it? Because I'm
maybe
curious.
a 2.5.
Maybe a 2.5. I have this as 4 out of 5.
Really?
How about that?
This is
Yeah, we are
shocking.
on the same wavelength.
This is kind of surprising. I'm not gonna lie.
No, I loved it. I had a really great time with it. I think when we kind of like get into stuff like this, I really like when it comes to more, like I was saying, like more inventive stuff or like sci-fi esque
Yeah,
stuff, right? So like, there's an element of that here with the premonitions and like death being an entity, and I really liked how Death's design was like based off the seating chart. So there was an actual pattern that he had
yeah.
to
Figure out and
solve,
go
and it's
through.
something that even like the viewer could solve if they really, were like speculating ideas. Like, how would it continue? Oh, maybe it would just go in the order that they originally had planned, right? Um, so I like that kind of aspect to it, and I liked the cast. I thought the cast was great. I've seen a lot of these people in tons of other stuff. Sean William Scott, um, even Kerr Smith, right? Like he's in Dawson's Creek, which I watched as a kid a lot. So I knew him, seen him in some other stuff. Ali Larter, I was a big Heroes fan, so I knew who
Yeah,
she
that first
was.
season was so good, and then the strike just
Crazy that it was only 6 years after this. Like she looks like she really matured in those 6 years. Not like I'm not saying she's old. I'm saying like she looks so young in
yeah.
this, but like 6 years later, bam, she's like playing a single mom in
She
Heroes.
does
I was
look
like, this
really
is
young
crazy.
in this.
Yeah, and like even like his dad, Alex Browning's dad, played Chloe's dad in Smallville. It was driving me nuts as I was watching. So I've seen that guy before, and I had to look it up. Um, some of these have the kid Todd. He was in Smallville as well. He was because they filmed in Vancouver. They got a lot of those same Vancouver
Yeah.
actors that show up in those type of shows that are filmed in Vancouver. But no, I really enjoyed it. It has that sci-fi bent to it, so it leaves you guessing on like, part of the fun too is like when the death scene is happening is how's he gonna die? Like when the water was leaking, I thought they trick you at first where it seems like it's gonna be when he's unplugging the radio
Oh, and the spark hits like he's
and
gonna electrocute
it's
himself
gonna
or
be
something.
yeah, that he's gonna electrocute himself, and then it like the water shifts, and it goes a different way when he walks a different way.
All right, so let me ask you this. So I bought when I got earlier today. No, that's not what I want to hold up. When I bought it, the 5-pack of Final Destination films was $14.96.
Mm-hmm.
Would you or could you see yourself buying all of them for $15 on Blu-ray? Because here's the thing, like, okay, you know this movie, right? I don't know if you have
Yeah,
any interest in seeing 5 to see how it actually connects to this. Well, you said you've seen that clip before, right? But so
yeah.
5 leads into this, right? And like I said, I'm not totally sure if there's connections between all of the movies. It's been so long since I've seen these.
Well, Ali Lauder's in two,
Yeah,
so
but for $15, and you might, if you decide to get it digitally, you might be able to find it cheaper. I don't know, for a pack of all of them.
true.
Uh,
This movie was $10 by itself on
oh,
Vudu, which is why I went for the rental instead.
and I'd say maybe at the most $20. So you see yourself getting them all for like 20 $15 $20.
I might roll the dice. I might roll the dice sometime and get for 15
Or
bucks.
like I said, it's 40% off now. At least where I'm at in California. I don't know if the
Yeah.
prices are different.
No, it's the same
Okay,
price. I see it here too. Yeah. Because like I said, I looked at it in case that would have been the cost efficient way to do it. I have like $11 left on my Amazon gift card, so it actually only cost me like
plus tax, you
$3
might be $5 or $6.
plus tax and stuff. Yeah.
I mean,
Um.
are you
So
interested in seeing the
I
rest of the
could.
series? Like, I'm not saying we're gonna watch it here for films for the very first time, but like, are you interested in at least
I'm
going
interested.
through the rest of the series and see what it
Yeah.
looks like?
Yeah. I think I am. I think like at least giving the second one a watch since it continues clears a story a bit here would be um interesting, or seeing how they handle that without having Devin come back as Alex. So like is he just written off? Is it like, because I feel like at a certain point like it's going to be whoever survives ends up dying in the next movie because death is still coming for them. So like I feel like there's no end for these characters other than 6 feet under.
And I'll
um
say this too: I saw all these as they came out and everything, and when 5 came out, and so there were people. So we've talked about the twist. The twist in 5 is it's actually a prequel to this, and the people
the people that survive get on the plane, right?
the people who end up surviving end up getting on flight 180, and that's the flight that obviously starts this whole thing. So that's what Devin saw and Clear and all those people end up getting off. So there are people who say, as they were watching this or it came out, that they're like, you could tell it was an older movie because I think that came out in like 2007, 8, somewhere in that range, right? But said you could tell because they were very deliberate when they made portions of that movie to not give away that it was a prequel. But there were small things that,
It was 2011.
but there
2011.
were small things like people said they were able to recognize it by like the New York State license plates in the movie, and I think like old
Cell
driver's license or
phones
something, or
or
a
phones.
couple of things there. Like maybe they did, and maybe they were able to pick that stuff out. I wasn't looking at it with like a really critical eye to try and figure anything out
Right.
like that when I saw it. I'll say when I saw that, and then because I think the first thing they show before it happens is just like a plane ticket of like Flight 180. And it says like Flight 180 to Paris, France, or something like that. And I couldn't remember, but my spidey sense was just tingling a little bit. Like that's weird. Because like I remember there was a plane, there was a plane crash or whatever in the
Right.
first one, and then when it starts playing out, and like you said, it actually shows footage from the first one, from this one, and I'm like, oh no, and that's when it hits you like, oh, you guys are done for, like, and not only that, but because you guys are done for, that's how these ones ended up escaping because they were supposed to be on the plane as well. Like, so like it's this whole loop thing of like they were supposed to die, but if you guys hadn't got on that plane, maybe they wouldn't have, and they could have had that raunchy teen comedy in Paris. But no, you
Right.
guys did
Right.
that, and now that caused that, and so on and so forth. So it was. I thought whenever they did that, that was a really great and interesting way to do that. And I remember sitting in there going, "Not bad. Like, well done, sir. Well done."
My only question when it comes to all of this is who is allowing Alex to see the premonitions to thwart death? Like, is it like some other entity that is trying to throw in Death's plan? Is it just some Death giving them an option to be like, hey, you can die this way or you can die
I,
another way?
I,
Like, that's something that's
I don't
interesting.
know. So one thing I forgot to mention was something that was scrapped in this was they had a love story between Clear and Alex.
It's still there. She calls him baby a few times, doesn't she?
Maybe at the end, and maybe that's something that happened over that 6 months, but like,
But no, I feel like when she goes to get him when after he like shocked himself, she's like says something about baby. I don't know.
but like there was a scrap love story between them, and then like at one point in the script, Alex was gonna, or not Alex, Clear was gonna end up pregnant with Alex's kid, and then that starts a whole new thing and so on and so forth. So I don't know, but I don't know because when you're dealing with cosmic entities like this, it's you're dealing with cosmic stuff. You're dealing with possible religions and everything. So like unless you do a ton of research to try and figure out how you want to do this, maybe in like the most respectful manner or the most knowledge sought manner, so you're not just like randomly throwing something out. It can cause backlash about stuff if people think you're disrespecting it, especially if it's a major religion, or if it's like Scientology where they just sue over everything, so you have to make up another religion to replicate Scientology, which I'm hoping we don't get sued for because of like mentioning it this on this podcast. But they're a very litigious group. Um, so I don't know. Uh, I hope you enjoy it because I know once I get it in, my movie backlog is pretty big, but I might actually pop in, especially now with no football season, right? On my Sundays, so I watch whatever we're gonna watch typically before we record when we record on Sundays, and I might pop in over the next couple months. I might pop in another Final Destination to get it up to Bloodlines because I don't know anything about Bloodlines, but with a name like Bloodlines, I'm assuming
Feels like it's connected, right? It feels like there's got to be
someone
some
in
sort of
there
connection in
is
it.
a direct relate to
Related.
Clear or Alex
Yeah.
or excuse me, one of these characters, a son, something like daughter, sibling, something, or one of the characters from one of these other movies. Excuse me, I don't know, but
I didn't realize that they took a 14-year gap in between the movies, which is the longest gap, and that this one says it's supposed to be the last one. We know how movies are. They will probably eventually be another one. But like they have shown restraint so far
Well,
that the last one was
but it's
2011
also
and now
it's
14
also
years
because the
later.
ratings and the box office results were going down more and more with each one.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think once you get like, okay, you know, you kind of go like a roller coaster. You go up and you hit that peak. I think two or three was probably the peak, where especially after one was good, two might have been the peak. I don't know.
Yeah, people show
Yeah,
out for
people are
the
really interested.
I'll look up box office. How
People are
about
really
that?
interested in somewhere in two or three, and then after that, once the quality starts going down, and you might get different screenwriters, different directors, and they're changing some of the formula and things. That's where all of a sudden you start getting those diminishing returns. So yeah, by the time you hit five, it's like, this is probably the last one because it's not making as much money as it should. I'm sure they'll probably sequel bait in this one. So if the box office results are good, they'll make another one. If not, I wouldn't mind seeing this as a series. I think this could do well as a series.
All right, worldwide, the highest grossing one was actually number 4 with $186 million.
And you know
Um,
what? That doesn't even sound like a lot nowadays.
yeah, it was the worst received one, so maybe that's why it took some time for the fifth one. It took well, it was only 2 years later the fifth one came out. Um, but it had, let's see, the first one made 112
Yeah,
million, the second one made 90 million, the third one made 118, and then a big bump for the fourth one to make
that is
186,
that's
and
huge right
then
there. Jesus.
Final Destination 5 made 157. So still actually on the same made 40 million dollar budget, it made pretty good
Return. Yeah.
money. Now the thing is, the box office gross domestically had went down in Final Destination 5. The worldwide one was only a little bit less, like outside of North America. So it does seem like there was more diminishing returns when it comes to domestic by the last one. But like the worldwide, like the international
And you know what?
bumped it up a
It
bit.
wasn't
So
until what, maybe 2012, 15, somewhere in there, where people were, they started being concerned more about the worldwide box office results for a lot of stuff.
right, right.
Um, I could also see, I could also see the budgeting, you know, you said a $40 million budget, and the budgeting,
40 mil. The first one was 23, the second one was 26, the third one was 25. The last two have been $40 million budgets. So it did balloon up a little bit more, where maybe then they saw the return wasn't as greater because you're spending more
and you're
originally.
doing a lot. There's a lot of CGI with some of those deaths and everything too, and then marketing probably didn't seem too bad. I don't know, but I could definitely, I could, like I said, I could see him sequel baiting in this one if it's if it gets good results, maybe. If not, then they can call it quits and say. But it'd be interesting to see who or what is coming back for this one. I know this is. I
Right.
think this is stated. It's one of, if not Tony Todd's last production. So I know I'll see
Hmm.
him in it, but I don't know about anyone else. Especially if they're bringing back one of the someone from one of the older series. A lot of times they might try and keep that under wraps for a little bit.
Okay.
So what is next on the
Um,
docket?
I think I'm gonna do it, Casey. I think I'm going to pull my wild card that we talked about at the beginning of the season and pick a movie I have never seen
Okay,
but want to watch. And I'm going to pick Inception.
okay, Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, locking it in. I liked Interstellar, which is Christopher Nolan. I hear people talk about Inception all the time. I kind of avoided it, and we'll talk about it next week. I kind of avoided it because of like I felt like everybody was hyping it up when it first came out. So now I feel like it's been some time. I'm ready for it. It's not streaming anywhere, but I know you have the
Yeah.
Blu-ray. I have it digitally on a sale I got one time for really cheap. So I think it's time to use the wild card.
Okay.
So I'm doing it. Yeah, so Inception will be the next movie we talk about. So make sure you check that out. We have all of our handles in the for social media and all of that in the description below. On the link tree, I believe you can also find my letterboxd if you wanted to see where movies fall in my ratings. If you forgot what I gave something or whatever, you can always go check it out there. And I have them in a special list that is all of my first time movies that I've watched. I don't keep track of the ones that I pick for Casey. So all the ones that he's picked for me are in a nice little list on Letterbox, and I have the rating and stars, what I thought about it. So there's that. But that's it. So we'll talk about Inception next time. So make sure you check that out. Like I said, I don't see it streaming anywhere. It was just somewhere recently when I last checked. But
Yeah, I don't see.
so either rent it, own it, whatever. We'll check it out then. We'll see you next time.